Hi, everybody. I want to give everyone a warm WICT welcome today to our speaker series event on my Climb Up the Corporate Ladder Part 2. We did this event last year and it was phenomenal. It was in person, and this year we decided to bring it back to everyone virtually since it left everybody wanting more. We changed up our panelists this year, and this year we're featuring Dana Wilson, Marge Jackson, Candy Lawson, and Karen Diamond. Thank you, ladies, for agreeing to join us today to share with us your candid experiences on your climb. I just want to give a quick shout out to Cisco, one of our sponsors, who gave us this platform to be able to host this event to over 400 or 500 people. And I think today we have with us our members from our local chapter. We have chapters across the country and also in other countries. So welcome everybody today. Before we get started, I just want to give everyone an update on our events upcoming so you can stay tuned. So Julie, if you want to go to the next slide. We have our Tech It Out Tuesdays starting September 8th, and it's an hour a week on every Tuesday, and it's an opportunity to learn more about technology. We have different speakers and different topics, so don't miss out on this. Carve out this time for yourself to learn more about technology. And then we also have our WICT Philly Gives Back, our annual fundraising event where we feature industry leaders. This year we're going virtual, and we're going to be doing a Gives Back campaign. Partnering with Girls Inc. And we're going to be starting that October 19th to the 27th. So don't miss out on that. We'll be doing our silent auction, and we'll be including all this information in our upcoming newsletters. So definitely register for these events. They're going to be phenomenal. And then one last thing before we get started is our available scholarships. Everyone, these are opportunities for you to learn more about the industry, to have professional development training. All you have to do is apply. We have 5 scholarships available. 2 scholarships for the WICT Leadership Conference, Executive Leadership Presence, and our Leading with Power and Authenticity with our Executive Leadership Series. So don't miss out on those. All you have to do is be a member and apply. And again, those deadlines are through the middle of September, so don't miss out on that as well. I'd like to turn it over to Julia Reusch, our co-programming director today and also our moderator, to get us started. So sit back, enjoy, and make sure you take those notes and tips on how to further your career with some of these ladies' experiences. Thank you all.
So getting started, I just want to give each of you an opportunity to do a quick intro. All of these incredible panelists have their full bios on the website. And so we just want to do a quick bio so we can really dive into the incredible questions that you all asked. So Candy, I'll start with you if you just want to quickly introduce yourself and talk about your current role.
Sure. Let me get off mute here, which is always important. I think in this virtual land, we're all learning to always check that you're off mute. So I'm Candy Lawson. I joined Comcast in April. So interesting time to join a new company and start managing a new team during the interesting time we're all experiencing. I'm the company's Chief Compliance Officer. So I'm responsible for ensuring that the company complies with the laws and regulations in the many jurisdictions in which we operate and conduct business around the world. This includes ensuring that we've implemented policies and procedures, that we conduct investigations of alleged misconduct, etc. In that role, I report to the Chief Legal Officer of the company and then provide regular reports to the Board of Directors as well.
Marge, welcome. If you could just give us a quick intro on what your role is now. I know you have a new role.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Thrilled to be here. Wish I could see all of you in person. As we all know, we're living in this current state, but we're getting creative, right? So, Marge Jackson, I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales Enablement in our Multicultural Symphony organization. So, been with the company for 22 years, and most of you know me as the sales leader across the organization that really represents the front line and making sure that we're driving sales and we're creating the enablement to make sure that we have all of our front line actually educated and skilled in order to effectively sell our great products and services. Most recently, I was asked to lead our Multicultural Symphony team, which is really putting a heightened focus around our multicultural segments. So if you think of our African American segment, you think of our Hispanic or our Asian American audience, it's all around how we're putting a focus on these different audiences and really making Xfinity a real destination for our audiences. So how are we making sure that we're really bringing them all the greatest products and services to them, but in a way that's going to really, I'll say, represent and really resonate with this audience. So happy to be here. Looking forward to growing. One thing that I have been saying is that the multicultural business and our customers in these segments is that if we don't win multicultural, we don't win. So we need to win in these segments. Up, Julia, you're in.
Dana, sorry about that.
Hi. So hello, everyone. Excited to be here. I'm Dana Wilson. I lead reliability engineering for Comcast. And what that means is that everything that powers all of our great products and services that are in customers' homes, there's a whole team, an army of folks that are keeping that up and running and reliable for our customers. And so I lead the organization that manages that from an operational standpoint, along with disaster recovery and automation and platform evolution for reliability engineering. And so I've been at Comcast for 10 years almost. I started in product development. I worked on a lot of cool things like the Olympics for London and Sochi. I've also worked in customer experience and transforming the experience for our customers end to end. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to have this great conversation with this great group of ladies, but hopefully be able to inspire those who are watching and drop a few gems on people.
Awesome. Thank you. And Karen.
Wonderful. Good morning to everyone. I'm thrilled to be a part of this group. Thank you so much for having me. I am Karen Diamond. I am the Vice President of Strategic Accounts within pureIntegration. pureIntegration is a consulting services firm that focuses in on digital transformation. One of our primary clients is Comcast, which is how I got invited into this forum. So I'm so thankful to be here. We've worked with Comcast for 15 years. I do not work directly with Comcast. My role is actually to grow everything outside of our two primary clients, which are Comcast and Charter. So my focus is growth primarily in the healthcare life sciences arena, which is a fascinating environment to be in right now. Energy and utilities, finance and insurance, and I do have a couple of smaller communications and media clients as well. So my team is responsible for penetrating new clients, growing existing clients. It's a interesting time to be in high growth mode, but there are lots of opportunities that this environment has really brought to organizations across the board. And what we're trying to do is be really innovative in how we go about actually harvesting those and serving within the primarily the systems integration, experience, and those types of realms. So very happy to be here. Looking forward to participating in the next 45 minutes or so.
Great. Thank you so much to all of you. So we got many, many great questions from the audience, and we tried to group them together into some themes. So hopefully all of the questions will get answered. The Q&A, as Robbie said, is open. It's really for technology questions, any issues might be having. We're going to dive right into the questions that we got, and want to start with you, Marge, and just talk about what are your days looking like in this pandemic? We were talking before this call, like all of us have threatened our children's lives on this. So what are your days like?
I'm laughing because what are my days like? So it's insane. I literally just jumped on this call, and I was sharing, Julia, I was sharing with you yesterday around just trying to juggle it all. And first, that's why I said I was happy to be here. I just got off of having a Dave Watson call and hoping to make sure that we didn't run over too long so I could show up and be here with all of you today. So it's been amazing to do this experience on just the amount of sheer volume. And I don't know if everybody's feeling it, but I know I'm feeling it. Of just the amount of sheer volume of this. How do you manage the back-to-back meetings? And literally, how do you, when I think about managing it, it's about prioritization. It comes down to what is the prioritization and what are we choosing to get done? And you know what? There are things that are just going to happen that you just got to know is going to happen in this virtual world. For example, right now I could end up having the cart, my cart getting picked up for service. So if something happens and the guy's at the door, the dog's going to start barking. Like, you just have to know things are going to happen and you got to be comfortable with it. And you know what? I've had so many technical issues that I have frozen, I don't know, whatever it may be, own it. So I'm just owning it. I'm like, you know what? This isn't working. Let me come back and I'll log back on. So it's just a matter of being comfortable in your own home. As you can see, I'm here in my office, and I welcome you into my home, and that, I just think at this point, you just have to be able to let your hair down and still do it. Let your hair down and prioritize. Prioritize what's going to get done that day, because it's a 10, 12, 14 hour day.
Karen, I know we were talking about this before. Talk about your day. I think that's a great segue.
Yes, couldn't agree more with Marge. And I try to convey to my team all the time, own it. I was sharing with the ladies prior to, at any moment, my 11-year-old will run into my office, inevitably, in a fight with his 12-year-old sister, and the dog will start barking. And, I think at the beginning of this was trying to cover up and make sure that, everybody was well behaved and I didn't get interrupted. And I think, on month 5, I'm like, yes, this is the way it goes. So I think one of the things that I read that I thought was really important was, if you get up and you expect the day to go well, you've already lost. You need to get up and expect that you're going to get interrupted, that things are not going to go the way that that you plan them, that you're not going to accomplish everything that you thought you accomplished. And it doesn't mean that you give up, but rather you stay fluid, you stay flexible, and you just try to do the best job that you can. And so I may not always be successful, but I do try to keep in mind that I should expect that things will not go the way I want them to go. And therefore, I'm a little bit better suited to actually make my way through the day successfully.
That is also great advice. I have many, many days that don't go the way I want them to, but I just keep trying. So keeping on the theme of advice, Candy, can you talk about some of the advice that you might have for a woman who really wants to move forward in her career?
Sure. I'm glad I don't have to talk about the disasters I have in my house right now, and I can get this question. Thank you.
You're welcome to talk about that too.
I'm good. I just repeating a lot of what has been already said, but I think the piece of advice that I usually convey when younger members of my team or other women come to me and ask me for advice is, we women are really hard on ourselves. We are our own worst critics, and we strive for a level of perfection in many cases that just is not attainable. So I think my best piece of advice is, don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. And I think that applies at work and at home. It's funny when I sit with other senior women and we talk about the role of women in the workplace, how things have changed, how they unfortunately haven't changed, and we're still work that needs to be done. And I think the thing that always gets mentioned is, why are young women not putting their hat in the ring? Why are they not showing up? And so I think that an example I often hear, and one that I've experienced myself, is when a new role is posted and the job description goes out. In my experience, you can pretty much expect in the first days for the new role that a lot of men will apply. And the women will sit back and we'll analyze the job description and we'll focus on the thing that we've never done before, and maybe we can't do this, and maybe we're not ready yet. And the men just throw their hat in the ring. And so my advice would be, put your hat in the ring. You are smarter and more able to ever believe yourself to be. I think if I was speaking to my younger self, that's what I would tell myself. And so you have to show up and be involved in the process in order to move up. So that's point number one. And that applies at work. I think probably an even better piece of advice that I received myself has nothing to do with work or career necessarily, but it ends up having a big impact on, or it did for me, on my life and career, which is if you're going to have a partner and you're going to have children, make sure you choose that partner wisely. You know, in my job, it's expected that I travel all the time. You know, for the past 8 years, for example, I've been traveling probably about 3 times a month. In this current role, once the world returns to normal, I'll be spending 50% of my time in Philadelphia, 50% of my time here in England, where I'm based. I have 3 children. If I didn't have a husband who thought it was just as much his responsibility as mine to manage our home front and to make sure that our children were happy, healthy, and cared for, there's no way I could do what I do right now. So you choose your partner wisely. You know, obviously, some of you have already chosen. If you chose poorly, try to set it right. I don't want to go down anybody's personal route. You know, try not to let that relationship derail your career. I've seen instances that were very disturbing to me over time and one I can recall in vivid detail. I was sitting in a meeting in London with a bunch of senior executives, and a mid-level lawyer had flown over from New York and was advising this group of people. And the phone kept ringing, and she finally said, you know, it's my husband, I need to take this because there could be an emergency. And what he was calling about, and this played out in the room in front of everyone, was that their son liked to have a banana every morning for his breakfast. They had run out of bananas, and what should he do? And you just sit there and you think, you know, her attention has now been completely taken off of the task at hand and what she is doing. So managing the home front is incredibly important. And in order to do that, in my experience as well, you can't let the perfect get in the way of the good. I can't get in the way of my husband and what he does and how he does it and try to micromanage it. I love Marie Kondo, just like the rest of us. I'd love to have perfectly coordinated sock drawers for all of my children, coordinated by color. My husband doesn't see that as being a priority, and that's fine, right? You have to get on with it and prioritize and get through it.
And I think that's such great advice. I used to travel 3 out of 4 weeks every month, and I just had to let it go at home with my husband. Not totally let it go, but like he's going to run things at home differently than I do. And I just have to let that happen, or it will be a constant struggle. And he's doing it his way. He's probably annoyed with me. So that's great advice. Dana, I wanted to turn it to you as we're thinking about advice. You, as we were prepping for this, had some great advice about setting expectations and how you set expectations with your daughter and your swim career. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Sure. You know, when we talk about the balance and exactly what Candy was speaking of, there's another part that you have to manage, which are the people that you work with and you work for, right? And so a lot of women have a lot of angst around, hey, I really want to go to that soccer game or that swim meet, a water polo match. And my daughter's a competitive swimmer. She has been since 5. She also has taken up water polo for the past 4 years, 5 years, and then track as well. And so, you know, I want to be there for those events and those major moments for her. And what I've learned throughout my career since, you know, having her, she's 16 now, and she's going to have more events, right? And so really setting expectations with the people that I work with. And that is something that can seem uncomfortable, but it's something that I have found to benefit me when you're very transparent about, hey, understand we're working on X. I need to be here by Y. I will be on the call. You just set the expectations of when you'll be present and when you won't be present. And I think people are really reasonable. Being in the area of the company and the industry that I'm in, you know, is not populated heavily with women. So for that, it can make it even more uncomfortable. But really being able to have that open and honest conversation and set those expectations around, hey, I'm here, I'm on. If I'm not on, I'll be back on at X time, and I'll answer that question or those emails or get back to that when I can get back to it after I deal with, what's going on in my personal life or my family, or go to an event, and just knowing when to set those expectations, or say, I'll be here, I'll be on the call, but I'm at a swim meet, so I'll have to step out and I'll get back to you, or I'll be on the call, but you may have some background noise, I may be on mute. Little things like that can remove a lot of the anxiety I feel that a lot of women may feel as they're trying to manage their career, grow in their career, and manage their household, and be, a woman, a mom, a wife, etc.
That's great. And I've always found, too, that it helps to normalize it for everybody else. If you can talk about it, then your team feels comfortable talking about it. And I really think it's helpful, with our male colleagues as they're talking about it, too. I love it when a man is like, I can't do this, my kid has this, or whatever. I think it makes it, we all deal with this, so why not talk about it? We're all dedicated to our jobs, too.
It's truly not just a woman thing, right? It is a whole household thing, right? It's just not the woman's role, it's got a little archaic, right? Because many men are out there trying to do the balance as well, right? And so I think opening the door in that conversation to make it okay, I think it goes a long way.
Absolutely. So as we talk about climbing the corporate ladder and your personal experiences, I want to talk about salary negotiation. So as you're thinking about either it's with a promotion or, you're in a current role and growing and having more responsibility, Dana, how do you approach those conversations? What are some of the potential negatives to it? Are there any? If you can just talk about your experience with that a little bit.
Sure. So I tell a lot of people around self-advocacy. Nobody will advocate better for you and write your narrative on what it is that you are expecting or you're trying to achieve better than you. And once you kind of get comfortable with that, it's the ask that really everybody gets a little uncomfortable about, or a lot uncomfortable about. And I see even the negatives, which I'll get there, as a positive. So, I think a lot of people are afraid of the word no, or afraid of not now. I think those are positives because it allows you to look internally into, okay, so why not, right? And what else do I need to achieve? And you can have a very direct conversation around expectations. People think that a lot of managers don't necessarily tell you right off the bat. They have certain expectations, but they're not expressing them. It'll be that opportunity for you to get that information directly from that manager so that you can set a plan to get there. I think the negotiation of that is ask. Do not be afraid. No will not kill you. It's dollars and cents. It's not anything else to harm you. It is a learning opportunity if you hear no, but you'd be very surprised at how many yeses you get if you just ask. And I think the getting over the hump of the ask is really what I highly recommend. I've done it in my career. Everything is negotiable. I say just about anything that I do, there is a way to negotiate something that I want out of it. If I'm asked to be on a project that I wasn't originally on and I need to step in and help out and, do maybe a little cleanup work, there's always negotiation at the end. My services are not free, and nobody's services are free here. So, right, we're all getting paid. So you need to negotiate how much is that service worth when you go in for promotion, whether it be, even career changes, which you want to switch gears and go into another area of the company. I truly believe just asking and letting people know, and that's what I've learned. Many people just don't know. They don't know that you're interested in something unless, you tell them. So really being able to have that conversation, it is uncomfortable. I've been doing this for a long time, so I felt like it's real easy. When I had to do it, I had to practice in the mirror. I had to make sure that I had my points down, but it worked. And people appreciate knowing because that's half the battle. So I would encourage advocacy for yourself. Do not be afraid to advocate for what you think is fair. And that's another biggie because some people will advocate for things, and if they know in their heart of hearts it's really not a fair deal you're asking for, you ask for a little bit more than you really should. If I were you, I would just stick to what's fair, stick to the facts. What have you delivered and the value you bring to an organization? What metrics do you have behind your ask? and go in for the fair ask. And that is something that I have done many, many times in my career to get where I am.
Great, thanks. And Marge, you had some great advice for how to even get to the ask. Like, how do you prepare for that? How do you get ready? What do you advise your team there?
So when I think about everything that Dana said around, making sure that you're being realistic, making sure that you're doing your homework, I'm all about a number. So for me, it's guiding my team on making sure that, they're doing the pre-sale also before you're even getting in the room. Back to, you got to advocate for yourself. So how are you actually making sure that, one, you're present to win? That's what I call it. You need to be present to win. So how are you making sure that you're present? And present to win means you don't just show up for a meeting. You're actually actively participating and you're demonstrating the body of work and your contribution to the organization. The other thing I would say is that feedback is a gift, which we've all heard that term. But it truly is that it's about having the courage to ask. And, and it takes courage to ask, like, what I just presented, was that good? Was that valuable? Because what you want to do, you're now building, you're getting that building block, right? Where it's like, hey, remember when we just got done doing this? Remember when we just launched X? Whatever that may be, but you're showing and you're basically building the building blocks to get to where Dana's at and talking about, now it's time, let's talk money. So you have to build and lay that foundation. And I think it's so important. There's a couple things you take away today. It's be present to win. Make sure you do your research. Make sure you're showcasing your work prior. And that's really, really critical. And make sure you have the courage to ask for that feedback. Once you open that dialogue, now you have something to go on. Now you have something that's like, yeah, it was great, or you got some work to do. And if you have some work to do, that's okay. Now you know what you're working with. And then you make sure you do the follow-up. It's really, really important.
Thanks. So keeping on important topics, let's talk about sexism. And anything that either experiences that you've had, learnings that you had, also just ways to deal with it or ways to deal with perceived sexism and how you can try to continue doing your best work and being recognized for it. So Candy, I'm going to start with you on this. How have you dealt with sexism in your career?
Well, unfortunately, I have seen and experienced some pretty horrific things in my career. I started out my career working in law enforcement. I was a parole officer in a male prison, dealing with correction officers and others every day, a very male environment. I worked in financial services in various industries where, I have experienced some things and seen things that, that were unprofessional and unfortunate. I think the way I have dealt with it is I had to have my own compass of where I wanted to be and where I didn't want to be. I had to really internalize the situation and look at it and say, is this for me or not? And then unfortunately exit situations where I just felt like I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to add my value to that organization or to that team, right? I think the Me Too movement is hopefully changing some of this further, but we still got a ways to go. I do take comfort from being part of a generation where I feel like, though more generally, the kinds of things we experience are more words. They're not, direct action that impedes or stops our career. That doesn't necessarily make it better. And so one thing, as I've grown more senior in my career that I've been really cognizant of is the words people use and the things people say to me and in my presence, right? So, I can recall walking into a boardroom in a particular country and being the only woman in that room. And I had just had a child 6 months before, and I walked into this room and two of them in turn and said, "What are you doing here? Where's your baby?" I said, I don't know where all of your children are, but mine is at home with my husband being well cared for. Thank you very much. Right. I've walked into rooms where people have asked you to get the coffee and you're one of the more senior people in the room. I've experienced people and I've had members of my team who I've had to call on certain things. One situation I very vividly recall is a man who would always come into a workroom where we were working on a big case, a big criminal case that we were working on at this particular company. And he would walk in at around a certain time every day and he'd say, "Oh, well, I got to get home. My wife needs to babysit." I finally said to him, "How much does she pay you per hour? Is it, $10, $12? What's the going rate?" Because you don't babysit your own children, right? And you would never see a woman enter a room and speak that way. So, I think words matter. We have to call people on it. We have to do it with the right tone, though, because generally I think most people are well-intentioned. They say something, they don't really intend to bring you down or to harm you. So I think doing it, assuming that it's not poorly intentioned, it's not intended to be, aggressive towards someone or to cut someone down, to try to do it in a humorous way or to, say it in such a way that it's clear you're making a point, but you're not questioning that person's integrity or trying to impugn them in any way.
Julia, I think there's another point to this too, and I have been fortunate that I really have not had overt types of things that Candy has, but I have had young women ask me, you sit on a team of all, on a leadership team of all men, how do you distinguish yourself as a woman, or how do you perform, or how are you accepted? And and my response is, your first problem is the way you're looking at the situation. I don't see myself any different than the men that are sitting at the table. And I conduct myself in a way that I belong at that table. I belong in that conversation. I have conducted myself in a way where I am an equal. And I think when you approach things that way, you have the confidence, not overconfidence, right? I've done my homework. I've sown my seeds. I advocate for myself. I know what I'm talking about. And when I don't know what I'm talking about, I own it. And I, say I don't know, and I'll go find out. And you better believe I will. And then I'll come back and make sure that, that I articulate what I've learned. But I think oftentimes, perhaps, people approach this in a way that they're already disadvantaged. And I think if you go in with that mindset, you're already trying to make up for something that might not even exist, but you've painted yourself into that corner. And so it's very disturbing to me when people ask me those types of questions, because my worry is, that issue is starting with you, not necessarily with the other people in the room. So being really, cautious about how you're approaching situations and making sure you're confident with how you hold yourself, particularly when you prepare yourself, like Marge was, suggesting, or Dana, you belong there, period.
Absolutely. And I think just a follow-on point to that is, when you put yourself in that mindset, you kind of lose the benefit perhaps of, mentors that will surprise you and that you never would have perhaps seen as being your mentor. I mean, I think a lot of women walk into an organization and think, okay, where's the mentor who is like me? I want another senior. I want a senior woman. I want someone, person of color. I want this person. In my experience, my best mentor that I've ever had in my career was a man who was incredible, from an entirely different background than me, but was someone who just stepped up and supported me in every aspect of my career and gave me great training and was just all around fantastic. So your mentors will surprise you, and you'll find them in interesting places, and they may not necessarily look like you, but they have a lot of experience to offer.
That's very true, Candy. I can't echo that enough. I think, you have to understand the value of the men in the room. I've been in situations where I've experienced sexism early on in my career. I've been in situations where, for the most part, due to the industry I'm in tech, I'm usually the only, what I call the lonely only, right? So I'm the only woman, I'm the only Black woman. And in those environments, it's a richness that you can experience if you understand that, number one, you have to command a level of respect. And that is not banging your fist on the desk. That is not, being rah-rah. It is actually knowing, preparing, but also challenging when things, and if you have to call something out, knowing how to do it, as we've been talking about. And it doesn't have to be aggressive, but at the end of the day, it is just pure human respect for each other, right? And so you don't have to be BFFs, you don't have to, powwow after work or, over coffee, but you do have to command a level of respect so that people don't feel comfortable necessarily, asking you to take notes in the meeting or go grab the coffee or make the copies for the deck that's being presented. So all of that to say that, for folks that are listening, really being able to see this as a level of respect for yourself and what you're bringing to the table and the value you bring, but the others in the room. Because there's a level of respect that you should expect from them, but there's a level of respect you should give them so that you can be open to some of the goodness around those folks that are different from you in that room and not seeing it as a disadvantage.
Yeah, and the one thing that I would add, just to everything that's been said, Dana, Karen, Candy said it beautifully. It is about the mindset that you have, and it is about you having the confidence that you belong, and you have the right to be in that room just like anyone else. The one thing that I am definitely known for is Marge just shows up. And it is, and believe me, I guarantee you, the teams around the room have said, did we invite her? Yes. Yes, you did invite me, and yes, I am here. So believe me, it's one of those where, I think it's so important that you show up, and the other piece of it is where, assume and have that confidence, and exactly what Dana said around, do not, what we used to call, and Dana knows what I'm talking about, we used to call don't be the binder girl, don't be now in today's world it's the digital scribe, right? Don't be the digital scribe, don't be the coffee girl, but have it and always walk in as you have earned the right to be in that room and have that confidence to make sure you bring that forth. And once again, if you find out that you weren't invited to the meeting that you should have been invited to, you need to show up. And I do.
So how do you handle that? I think we've all been in the position where you're in a meeting and somebody does ask you, hey, can you take notes for this meeting and send them back to me? How do you handle somebody asking you that and declining politely?
Really easy. Let me go there. 1 second, Candy.
No.
This is one where I am passionate about. I'm like, one of the first things that I will say, I'm very strategic in my thought processing on that one. I'm like, I already start signing roles. So when I look around, we all know, and we've all been in situations where you're going to get handed to the marker. We all know, right? So immediately, rather than being, I take the offensive strategy versus the defensive strategy. My offensive strategy is I already start making a list. As soon as I start seeing we're getting ready to work as a team, I start laying out who's going to do what, and I immediately step up saying, okay, let me just share a plan. Does this work for everybody? So I take an offensive strategy versus waiting and being handed the marker.
And Katie, did you want to jump in at all?
I think that was well covered by Marge.
I think we're all passionate about that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, though, earlier in your career, you have to assess the situation, right? You may be the most junior person in the room and you happen to be a woman and you happen to be the only woman there. In that situation, you shouldn't start balking that you've been handed the notes because we've all done our time. You have to pay your dues and that's what you do. So if it's about your level in the organization, that's all good. But when you're sitting in a room and it's clear you're the mid-level person and there are a lot of junior people sitting there and you're getting the task, then you got to hand it right back over and turn to them and say, well, actually, I think this is on you this time. Paid my dues, thank you.
great. I want to transition. This is a question we got in many different forms from our audience members about mentorship, menteeship, and sponsorship and advocacy. So starting with menteeship, a lot of our people who are listening right now, maybe you might be a mentee for the first time, and they're trying to figure out, like, they have this great mentor, and they're really excited, but how do you make the most of that situation? How do you really capitalize on that? So, Marge, I want to start with you about what's your advice to be a great mentee?
So I actually would start with, I had to learn, myself how to be a great mentee. Candy, I think you made a really great point around, your mentees, mentors don't need to look like you. And, your comments really resonated with me of like somebody so different. I have two, white males that have been mentors of mine throughout my entire career that I still call today. And, I think I learned so much from them on how to be a great mentee, right? To start with respect. So respect for them and the time that they were spending with me. And I didn't know that early on, but I had to learn, you can't just pick up the phone and assume the mentor's going to be available in the middle of the day. Like, this is extracurricular activity. This is above and beyond your daily call of duty. So I had to learn, like, one, it has to be scheduled. Two, I actually needed to own my own plan. So it's not the mentor coming and telling you this is what you need to go do, or this is what you should strive for. A good mentee really has done their own homework, that really has, understands where they want to go, and then it's about how does the mentor help you get where you want to go, versus somebody coming in and sitting down with me saying, not really sure what I want to do with my life. That's not my job. When I think about somebody who's really good, is somebody who has done their homework, knows where they really want to go, or at least a thought around where they want to go, and then we can help shape it. And then, somebody who's willing to sit down with you and really do the work. So if I'm making recommendations of, you need to go do, you need to go reach out, you need to go network, you need to go read these books, you need to, you need to do this follow-up, you need to do this exercise, whatever it may be, if somebody who's willing to do the work, and then when I hold people accountable, when they come back and visit with me and we have another mentor conversation, I am then saying, okay, let's talk about what you got done. I can name 3 or 4 people that are probably listening on this call right now. I have mentored over the years, and I have watched, I have grown them, and I've watched them grow into other leadership positions, and it's so rewarding. Like, it's one of the most rewarding things you can do. So to me, that's what makes it great mentee. So anybody who's listening and wants to, think about, hey, how do I get that mentor? Think about how do you become a great mentee and do the work.
And then, so you're a great mentee. How do you then build on that and really help your mentor be an advocate and a sponsor for you? And Dana, I want you to answer this one.
Okay. So, yeah, I think the transition of, and when you're being mentored, as a mentee, you should also be very interested in the development of the person mentoring you, right? Because that person is also developing and also growing and can turn into your sponsor later down the road as they continue to get promoted and achieve different things and move around an organization. And so, that transition is so critical because it's all about a relationship, and it's all about that conversation and people knowing exactly what you're interested in, what you plan to ask for, getting the coaching on, how do you ask and get over that ask hump that we basically have talked about on this call. And I think really that sponsorship relationship, it starts with a relationship, and people really trusting in their sponsor to advocate for them when they're not in the room. And so really having those conversations that are very open and honest about, areas of opportunity for growth, areas where you're kind of mastered it and, you rock it in those areas, but that person actually knows what you're very good at and what you're trying to develop. And so I think really when you even start your relationship as a mentee with your mentor, you really should get to know your mentor also in their career path and what they aspire to be, because you never know where life is long, and we keep living it, and it takes us so many different places that you may find that same person is going to develop into your sponsor when you have, for your next career move, or if you want to change directions. So I definitely would say also know your mentor, get to know them, to know their career and aspirations and where they're kind of headed and where they are, what stage they are in their career, because some people may be on their way to retirement, right? And so you need to have like what I call a kitchen cabinet of folks that are, your trusted advisors, but that they range from, people may be retiring, people may be mid-career, and people may be early on in their career, because you may also find a lot of goodness in just sharing and being mentored by somebody considered kind of a peer, but has had, that person may have had a lot of different experience along the way outside of where they are today.
So you just touched on having this cabinet of people, and I want to transition into another topic that came up a lot in the questions, which was balance. I personally don't love the have it all phrase, but we all know that all of this is a juggling act and a balancing act. And so, Karen, I want to start with you. Can you just talk about how do you think about balance? How do you manage with home and work and everything? How does that go? And please all feel free to chime in too.
Yeah, I think it's a holy grail that doesn't exist on a consistent basis. I think balance is all about where are you right now? Where are you maybe today? Not necessarily, how can you have a balanced life, right? So how do you balance across the longer term? And really, it boils down to prioritization. What is important to you, what is important to your family, what needs to get done. And it brings in a lot of the themes that we've talked about, being transparent with what your priorities are, with who you work for and who you work with. As Dana was saying, if it's making sure that you want to get to an event for your child and you know that that's happening, arranging around that, communicating so that you can do that and not feel guilty about it, and not, and feel that you can enjoy it, and make sure that you're not leaving anybody in the lurch and you're planning around it, right? So it's prioritization, it's planning, it's being open-minded and flexible about how you are approaching everything, being communicative so that you're bringing in the people that are around you into things, and that you're doing the same for them. So that you cover for each other. I told one of my team members just this week, I think everyone is under a lot of duress and intensity around working right now. You're basically working at what did I say? You're living at work. You're not working from home, you're living at work. And there doesn't seem to be any good time to get away. Not that there's many ways to get away, but I said to her, there's never going to be a good time. What you need to do is position yourself, plan, leverage your team, and people will support you and they'll fill in. And that's the way you find balance, in my mind.
Great. We have a few minutes left, and this is a question that came up that I think is a great way to end this. Obviously, climbing the corporate ladder, going far in your career takes sacrifice. There's things that you do. What for you makes it all worth it?
Julia, I'll kick it off as far as the last comment. I love to win, and I am competitive. I love to win. I love the fact that I get to do what we're doing right here, which is all of us coming together for a common purpose. I love the fact of, mentoring others. It's my personal passion around personal branding to help other folks climb the ladder. It's fulfilling. It's very fulfilling outside of, I love being a mom. I love being a wife, and I love being, a Gigi, grandma. But at the end of the day, during the day, you know, this is personally fulfilling for me. And like I said, I feel like this is my opportunity to also give back, you know. It's an opportunity that I can help all the other folks that are coming, that are up and coming, you know. To me, that's what makes my day.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you have to love what you do. We do this for such a big chunk of our lives, and you do have a lot of things you sacrifice to do the work that we all do. And I think you have to love what you do. I love what I do. I feel like I come to work and I get to work with really interesting, exciting business people doing lots of new and innovative things. And my plan on it is I also feel like I get to do something where I ensure that and help people to ensure that the business that we are doing falls within also the societal expectations that we all have and that the world that we want to live in, so that we're fighting against corruption and ensuring that we're not furthering that in anything that we're doing, that we're combating modern slavery and making sure that our supply chains are clean, that we are able to look ourselves in the face at the end of the day and as a company and say, yes, you know, we're not just, you know, corporate business making profit. We do make profit. We develop products people want to use. They love them. And at the same time, we're doing it the right way. And so I get a lot of pride from that in all of the businesses in which I've been able to work in these past years. And, you know, on a personal front, I feel an obligation to my daughter. When I look at my daughter and I see so many of the women where I live in the suburbs who kind of are bowing out of careers and staying at home, and it's all a personal choice, and I would never question anyone's personal choice. I think everybody has to choose what's best for them. But I just think to myself, if there isn't a group of us who are sticking in there and who are trying to get to those senior levels, we're never going to have the change that we want to see in the world. Of boards of directors being, you know, with large groups of women, of, you know, people in government, you know, our first female president someday in the United States, you know, please God, like, you know, I want my daughter to live in a world where there isn't a ceiling in what she can achieve. So, that's where I am.
And for me, I totally agree. I want to not, and I do this so that we can do away with folks being a unicorn. You know, I do this for all of the children, the young women, the young teenagers that are from underrepresented populations of people who really don't know that this is achievable. They don't feel that it's achievable. They don't see it. And I do that for them. And I do it for my child, who is a girl as well. And so I'm setting an example for her so that she can see, you know, there are many different directions she can go in life, and she can navigate and direct her own ship in a way that's success for her. And so, you know, that notion that right now, you know, in the technology space, in the tech world, there aren't many people that look like me, and being able to show, represent, and also pay it forward for those behind me so that they have hope that they can actually achieve it as well. And so for me, it is definitely, we want to do away with the unicorn, where everybody can achieve this level of success, but also within whatever sector you're in. And that it shouldn't be that you're just a special class of people because you don't exist, or there are very few of you that exist.
Yeah, all very well said. And I'm so fortunate to be in the company of you all, you know, and every time someone speaks, I'm like, yes, that. I think I love to win as well. I love to watch my team win. I love to tackle really difficult, challenging problems and figure them out. That is what makes my day, you know, really fulfilling. And I like the fact that I'm showing people at work that this is possible. You can have a family. You can be a good mom. You can be a great wife. You can actually be a great leader at the same time. You know, there is such a thing. And showing my family and you know, and my children that, you know, I am an equal to their father. I am you know, doing big things every day, and they can too. And that, you know, and I can, and to aspire to love. You know, my kids ask me all the time, Mommy, do you love to work? And I'm like, I love to work. I love it. There's so much affirmation I get from it, and I get so much happiness. So I do think you have to love what you do. There's certain you know, there's been certain times I haven't loved to work. There's certain days I don't love to work, but all in all, I think it is extremely fulfilling to solve difficult problems, to see your clients make progress efficiently and to learn new things, and then certainly to be a role model to those that you work with and your families as well.
Well, I don't think there's any other way to end that. That was an incredible conversation. Thank you all so much. Karen, Candy, Dana, Marge, we appreciate the time that you put into this and your really candid responses. I also want to take a moment just to thank our incredible sponsors for WICT Philadelphia. Please all go to our website to find other events and other things. And thank you. I hope you all have a wonderful day.